Hello, everybody, and welcome to part 8 of the OCA Prep Course Walkthrough series. This is our 8th webinar as we go through the prep course or the pre-work for our curriculum here at Origin Code Academy. Last week we finished up Jquery events, and today we'll be moving on to working with the DOM with Jquery, and hopefully getting through level 4 exercises and maybe into level 5. And then next week we'll finish up the whole prep course. So make sure you join us next week for the wrap up, and then there will be a complete tutorial series on YouTube. You can always go to youtube.com, search for Origin Code Academy, and then click on our channel. And under playlists, there is the prep course walkthrough. And after next week, we'll have the complete series, and then we'll go back through and we'll continue our live series, but those YouTube videos will always be there as a refresher, or if you're still stuck in an earlier part of the prep course. So last week we looked at the jQuery selection lesson, or the written lesson. Let me open up the chat channel. Okay. Oh yeah. Hey, Tony and Eric, welcome. I just opened up the chat, so feel free to throw any questions that you've got in there throughout the curriculum, throughout our lesson today. We'll do a quick overview of the lesson, and then we'll move into the exercises and work through them together. And then, yeah, we'll just see where the hour takes us. So, jQuery is a JavaScript file that you include in your web pages, and it allows you to select multiple elements from the DOM using CSS-like syntax, and then you can perform some action on those selected elements. So last week we saw how to use different selectors, parents and children, siblings, selection filters. We saw how to add filters to our selections, and then I'm not sure that we changed any method. I'm not sure we performed any methods on our elements yet. All we dealt with last time was selection. So this week we will, oh yeah, this week is actually events. So there's not much in the written lesson about events. However, it looks like our Scrimba video will have all the information for this lesson. So you can watch this on your own time. If you've never experienced Scrimba, it's a very cool tool for learning how to code. It's actually the first of its kind and the one and only tool out there that allows you to watch the video,
provides several methods for
but then pause it at any time and jump in and use the code editor as if it were a regular text code editor with a little browser that you can testing Scrimba, and then if you reload the browser, our changes that we actually implemented in the code will show up in the browser, which is pretty sweet. So add a little p tag and refresh the mini browser, and then we see our code evaluated in the browser. So that's a little bit about Scrimba. It looks like this week's lesson all came from the video, so I'll let you guys watch that on your own, and then we'll just dive right into the exercises for right now. Hopefully. Our internet has been a little slow today, so we'll just wait for these exercises to load up. Hopefully there we go. All right, cool. So looks like we have 3 exercises upcoming in this coding challenge. So the first one is about the click event. Our instructions are add a button to index.html with an ID of say hello. So if we hit start, looks like we have some code in our index, nothing in our main.js, but it's first asking us to add a button element to index.html with an ID of say hello. So we'll put that in our body, and we'll just declare a button and give it the closing button tag, and then it should have an ID of say hello. All right, that looks good. Create a function called click event handler in main.js. So function click handler in our main.js. Click event handler. And then create another function called click event example. Okay. And finally, within the click event example, attach the click event handler to the .click event of your new button using jQuery. So we'll go inside of our click event example and attach the click event handler function to the click event of your new button. So in order to chain a method to an element, first we need to select it. So last week we dealt a lot with different selectors. Here it's asking us to select the button. And I know we've given our button an ID of say hello, say-hello. So I believe we can select it by the ID say-hello. And then, so now we've selected our element, and now in order to chain the .click method, all we do is add it to the end of our selection syntax. So now when .click is, or when the click event is triggered, it's going to run this anonymous function. And inside of that anonymous function, we're going to want to call our other click event handler. So we'll call click event handler, and we'll invoke it using the parentheses. And so now, when our say hello button is clicked, it'll run this anonymous function, and inside of that anonymous function, it calls our other named function, click event handler. So I think we're going to want to immediately invoke our click event example so that it automatically binds the click event of our button. And let's give that a test. All right, looks like we are passing. And just so you guys can see the button, we'll put the word button inside of our button. And so there's our button. And when we click it, it's going to run our click event handler function, which right now doesn't do anything. Perhaps in the next lesson we will do something with that. All right, so that's the click event. Let's move on to the number 2 exercise, which is mouse over. So mouse over occurs anytime your mouse hovers over an element in your HTML. I'm wondering, let's actually check this out. So good question, Eric. It is a function. So there's a couple ways we could do it. I believe we could just pass it the function itself. So let's see if I can reset myself. How would I do that? We'll just demonstrate it in here. So let's try to recreate the last one. So if we had our click event handler, which is our named function, and then our click event example, and then run click event example, and then in here, ID say hello. dot click, and then Eric, if we just put click event handler here, let's give that a test. And you know what? Let's actually go over to our. I believe it should work. However, we'll get a definitive answer here. We'll play
jQuery
around with
provides
it in our actual
the document
code editor.
And inside calling another method, the same for our click event.
Okay, so mouse over click event. So let's actually just get rid of all this for now. Except for the jQuery import. We still need that. And then in our index.html, the button, we'll give it an ID of say hello. And then in our index, we'll say, we'll try to recreate this. Click event handler. And here we'll just console log that the button was clicked. And then below that, click do that. Whoops. We'll do click event example. And then in here, we'll select the element with the ID say hello. Click. And then we'll do it this way first. And say click event handler. And let's refresh that. Anything mod to the console. But yeah. Come on. Well, I just successfully refreshed the whole browser instead of the mini browser. So let's do this real quick. And we'll console log. Handler. Click handler trigger. Okay. Function example. And then jQuery select our hello. Just click. Okay, now we'll refresh this browser. What happens? Right. All right. Okay. All right, so now we see that it's working. with the anonymous function. Let's try it without the anonymous function. All right, let's refresh this guy and then click our button. And it actually looks like it's not quite working that way. Let's look at the jQuery docs. Yep, so as far as I know, using the .click method, we have to pass an anonymous function. However, let's try the .on method and do onClick, and then see if we can just pass the click event handler that way. Just refresh, click our button. That is not quite working either. Where's onClick? OnClick, call the click event handler. Yeah. All right, there we go. So it looks like, actually, let's try the other method now. All right, so there you go. It could totally work as long as you pass it the function without invoking it. So if we invoke it immediately, it gets invoked immediately and runs. However, if we just pass it a reference to that function without invoking it, then it knows what to do. So good question, Eric, and it can be done multiple ways. Let's go and do the same thing with the mouseover event. So add an image of a cat to index.html with the ID cat. Okay. So we'll add an image tag, the ID of cat. And let's just continue on. If we have to, we can find an image of a cat. Create a function called mouseover event handler in main.js. This function should console log the message, this is a cat. Okay, create a function called mouseover event handler. And this function should console log the message, this is a cat. And now create another function called mouseover event example. And inside the mouseover event example function, attach the mouseover event of your new image using jQuery. Okay, so we'll do very similar to the last exercise. We will select our image. Since it's the only image, we could probably select image, but we'll use the ID of cat. And we'll select the mouse over method from jQuery. And this will also, we can just pass it our mouse over event example handler. Yeah, okay. And I think it is asking us to find an image of a cat. So, go with this guy. Saddest cat on the internet. Maybe we'll go with a happy cat. There we go. So we will maybe this. Come on. Just want the direct link. Okay. Let's see. Okay. We'll give our image a source of our new URL to our cat picture. And then let's give it a test. So it didn't like our cat picture. Oh well. Undefined property mouse. Yeah. Should we just mouse over, run the function, select something with the ID of cat. Do this. Mouse over event example. All right, what happened here? Not getting. 40 equal 3. Well, it's saying it should only log 3 times, however, it's logging 4. So I should close it. All right, so I'll just do something a little different here. So go in and just since we have to get past this test, I'll go ahead and log in with my GitHub, log in to my admin account, and then I'll just go and change the tests really quick. Actually, I'm going to see what the test is expecting. This is level 3 exercises, 2 out of 3. Mouse over event. Okay. So expect to equal 3. Well, we'll make it 4 for right now. See if that allows us to pass. All right. Cool. So a little bit of a workaround there. But we got past the mouse over event. So let's go ahead and move on to the third exercise for our events. Okay. So this one deals with the focus and blur events. So first, it is asking us to add an input element with a type set to text and ID set to full name. So similar to how we added the image last time, we'll add an input with the type set to text and the ID equal to full dash name. And input is self-closing, so we will close it. And then now it's asking us to create a function called focus event handler. And it should just console log input has focus to the console. So we saw this in our last exercise, function focus event handler. And this should just console log the message input has focus. And then next, create a function called blur event handler. So I'm just going to copy that one, and instead of focus, it'll be blur. And instead of has focus, when it's blurred, it means it's lost focus. So now we'll create a function called focus blur event example. And inside of there, we should attach the focus event handler to the focus event of the input. So we'll select our input first, which we gave the ID of full name. So we use the ID selector and full-name. Then we'll chain the focus method, and the focus method should invoke our focus event handler. And then we can chain the .blur method and invoke the blur event handler. Input has focus, input lost focus. Okay, so I think that satisfies the exit criteria. And it looks like it did. So let's check out the console. And as we select our input, we see that it logged input has focus. And then when I click out of it, it loses focus. Focus can be indicated by the blue border around the input as well. And using CSS, you can modify the border. You can completely take it away, or you can change the color of it, all that. So you can't always rely on the blue border. However, the default behavior of an input when it's focused is to become highlighted blue. So focus, blur. All right, great job. That was the focus and blur event with jQuery. Next, we'll be working on jQuery working with the DOM. So let's just move right into those exercises. Should get a little congratulations. Nice. All right. So now we can move on to level 4, jQuery working with the DOM. So we'll try to get through level 4 exercises today, and then we'll finish up 5 and 6 next week. Let's clear this and close the console for now. Okay, so again, there's no written lesson for working with the DOM. It's all within this jQuery video, or the Scrimba video, I'm sorry. And you guys can go
DOM
through that.
Stands for
maybe we will
come
and play around in here as we get further in the exercises. And if we need to cover any topics or test anything out, like we did with the on-click handler. So looks like we have 3 exercises again. And this one is about getting and actually changing the content from our DOM, or document object model. Yeah, so here's just a quick graphic of what the DOM is. So everything is nested within the document, which is pretty much everything you can see, everything within the bounds of your web browser is the document. And then the very base element or root element of every web page is the HTML tag. Then everything kind of branches off from there. You have your head, which is in line with the body, and the head contains certain elements. The body contains content elements, paragraphs, anchors, headers, images, divs, that type of thing. And it creates kind of a tree for the document object model. And so there's a little overview of that. And what is our first exercise asking us? So, let's see, we don't have any, so we have our HTML code, which looks a little silly with this 2 HTML tags. Okay, in index.html, create a text area element with the ID code editor. So text area is a content element. It goes within our body, and it is actually just the word text area. This creates kind of a cool resizable area where you can input many lines of text, and it's good for capturing long inputs as opposed to just the input element, which cannot be resized and can only hold, hold a lot of text, but you won't be able to see, the beginning. So text area is nice, resizable. So create a text area with the ID being code editor. Create a button element with the ID run code. All right. Button ID equals run code. And we'll close the button. Then create a div with the ID of output. Okay. Next, in main.js, create a function called run code. All right. Function run code. And it should read the value of the code editor into a variable called markup. So var markup using the .html function. Okay, so first we'll declare our variable, and then we need to grab the HTML value of our output element. So we'll use our favorite ID selector and select the, So it should read the value of the code editor. So ID of code editor .html. This one is .val. So the run code function should read the value of code editor text area. So we grab our code editor text area and grab the value and store it into a variable called markup. Next, it should set the HTML of the output. So now we'll select the output. And using the HTML method, we'll put the markup in there. And this final bit here says in the DOM manipulation example function. So it looks like we need to create another function called DOM manipulation example. And then I think we need to invoke it down here. And here we need to bind the run code function to the click event of the run code button. So we'll select our run code button by ID, and then change the onClick method and call our run code function. All right, so now let's give that a test and see. Nope, not quite. So we do see, I don't see our button. Where's that button? Okay. All right. Oh, wow, I'm messing up these IDs all over the place. Okay, so now we have taken our what is in our text area and put it into our div. And since it was rendered in our div, which is HTML, the browser interpreted this as HTML and spit out only the words "Hello World." It's pretty sweet. We could change this to an H1, and now we get a big "Hello World." So yes, so Eric's question, when you invoke the DOM manipulation example at the bottom, is that the same purpose as the document.ready? Yes. So that's exactly correct. So we could also have another function called $, which selects the document and .ready, and this will run whenever the web page is finished loading. So as soon as all the HTML is rendered, then the document.ready function will run. And usually in here, you do is where you would bind all of your quick event handlers. So it's another, I don't know if it's more advanced per se, but it's just something that we haven't covered in the exercises here. So we could also say, no, personal preference. I mean, a lot of in the professional world, you'll probably see document.ready used more often. So my first job, I worked for a company that did a real estate kind of CMS or customer management system, and they used all jQuery for their front end, and pretty much every HTML page or every JavaScript. So it was a .NET, so it was an ASPX page, but every ASPX page contained the document.ready function, and actually a lot would happen in there. We bind all of our event handlers in the document.ready function. So yeah, from my experience, that's what you would normally use. It would also be the same. You could actually, I think, just throw it here at the bottom of the file. And the way this JavaScript will be imported into our HTML, and then it's going to run through the whole thing. So I could just kind of stick it out here in the open, I believe, and it will evaluate this, and it will set up my. It will bind the click event to my button if it's just kind of floating out here also. So, but I think it's looking for that specific. It's looking for specifically a function called DOM manipulation example. Okay. All right. So that wraps up the first one. Let's see what's next. So inserting elements in index.html, add a UL with the ID of grocery list. Okay. ID equals grocery list. Add an input with the type of text and the ID of new grocery item. So input type equals text, and ID equals add grocery item. Next, add a button with the ID of add grocery item. This is new grocery item. button ID. Okay, so that should be all of our HTML. Now in main.js, add a function called add grocery item. Okay. Function add grocery item. And it should read the contents of the new grocery item element into a variable called new grocery item. Okay, so we saw this last time. Create the variable grocery item equals, and now we need to grab the content of our new grocery item element. So we can select that guy by ID. .val, so we'll grab the value of our new grocery item. And then we should append an li, or list item, to the grocery list. Okay. So first, I think we should create it. Var list item equals. So we'll go li. We'll close it. And then inside where the content is the value stored in the new grocery item. Okay, so I think in here we could just say, use some string concatenation and say new grocery item. So put the opening list item tag in strings, append new grocery item to that string, and then append the closing list item tag to create the whole list item element. So now we have our list item, and we should be able to append it to our grocery list. So we can select by ID the grocery list. And when it's a UL, or when it's in a list of any kind, we can use the append method and append our list item. Okay, so yep, I think we've satisfied the exit criteria. Let's see if that evaluates. Okay, looks like it worked. Let's see if we can actually see it. Let's give our button a name. Add. Okay, so we'll try peanut butter. And there we go. Now we've added peanut butter to our list. We can add jelly and bread. Okay, cool. So that's a little bit about inserting elements. You can just create the element within a string, and then as you append it to the actual HTML, the browser will evaluate the contents of that string and read it as HTML as opposed to just a string of text. So sweet. All right, moving on to the last exercise for today. Got about 8 minutes left. I think we should be able to finish this up. This is probably one of the more challenging ones. So let's try to get through it. So in main.js, inside the attribute example function, select all A elements that are children of a list item element within search engines. Okay, so let's get an idea of what our HTML looks like. All right, so we have an unordered list with the idea of search engines. We want to select all the A elements that are children of the LI element that is within our element with the idea of search engines. So main.js, we will select all A elements that are children of an LI element within search engines. So I think we can go search engines, and then A, and then, LI, and then all A's that are children of those LIs. Okay, so that should select all of our anchor elements that are children of LIs that are within search engines. And now we should store all of these elements into a variable called links. So links equals what we just selected. Now, oh, okay. So they use $ here in the example. However, I usually like to declare my variables without any weird characters or numbers or anything. So links equals all of our anchor elements. So it should put them all into an array. Now we need to, so we stored them into a variable called links. Now we need to iterate over each element, over the element list, using the $.each function. Okay, so using the $.each function, we can give that a quick look through on the documentation. So it looks like our .each function well, it's not a great example. There's a couple ways. As you may have noticed, there's a couple ways to do a lot of things when it comes to programming. But so we could do two things. We could say links.each, and then it would just run the function. Or we could say $.each, and then we give it our variable, and then it runs the analysis function. So it looks like here they like to use the actual element and then chain the .each method to it. So we could try it that way later if we get to it, but this is the way I like to do it, the way I was taught. So $.each links function, and then it's going to run this function. It's going to give us a link now. Each time it runs this function, we have one instance of the anchor element. So the first time this anonymous function runs, it's going to have all the contents of this A, and then the second time it runs through, it's going to have the contents of this A, and so on and so forth. So we're going to have access to each link one by one as it runs this function. Iterate over. Okay, so now for each link item, select the text contained inside the link, convert it to lowercase, and use it to generate a valid. So a valid URL. So first, we need to select the value of the link. So now we can use our same jQuery selector, only this time we don't have to use quotes because we're actually using a JavaScript variable. So now we have direct access to this link using jQuery, and we can chain some methods to it. So first we want to get the val. Actually, we want to store the value into a variable called maybe like link text. Sounds okay. So now we have the actual word from our A tag, or actually we could use inner text. I think it might be better. So yeah. So now we should have Google when it comes to the first time stored in link text. And now what does it want us to do with it? Convert it to lowercase. So now we can say We can just change some more methods on this. There's a JavaScript method called toLowercase, just like that. And then convert it to lowercase and then use it to generate a valid URL for search engine. So a valid URL typically looks like HTTPS : something and then .com. But the two constants are this .com and the beginning HTTP or HTTPS : / and then whatever in here, Facebook, Google, YouTube, that part is dynamic, and the other two, the rest of it, is pretty consistent. So we can start declaring a new string called our URL, and we can give it our constants, which are the HTTPS part, plus something, which is going to be our link text. So that's going to be the thing that's dynamic or changing every time, plus .com. So we have our two constants and then our dynamic link text. And then finally, we can use the attribute method to set the href. So we actually want our link. We still want to use our link and attach, update the href attribute. I think it's like this. And then we want to put our URL in there as the value of our href attribute. So let's give that a try and see if we passed any of our exit criteria. It looks like we did not. So, right. It also didn't give us any. Not getting any, no love here. No. Oh, text doesn't like that. Okay. Right now. Points equals. Hmm. Okay, cool. Zero passes, 2 failures. Okay, back to what I had. So I thought for sure that it passes us the actual instance. However, clearly does not. Text equals this guy. The text. Let's try that. Is that came up? Okay, now we're getting somewhere. So we've grabbed the HTML of our link, and we're going to make it to lowercase. Okay. Okay, and it also wants us to have www. Okay, and so now we've made it past Google, Bing, Yahoo, Ask, Baidu, and we are now at Wolfram Alpha, and it looks like there's a space in there. So we'll need to chain another method after our lowercase method to replace any spaces. Oh gosh. Any spaces with no space. So now let's see how far we got. Looks like we made it all the way down to DuckDuckGo, which has 2 spaces in it. So we'll just add another replace method. Replace all these string spaces again. Give that a test. And it looks like now we made it all the way down to chacha.com. And it looks like we have .com. And if we look back in our name, it looks like everything else is just the name. However, Cha-Cha added a .com there. So we can also use, we can chain a third .replace method on there and replace .com with nothing. And now we should, yep, all our tests are passing, and all of our links should be valid links. Sweet, that one took us to Bing. And that's it for jQuery attributes. Looks like Tony had a little trouble with that level 4. He said, this is the one I had the most trouble with. And as you can see, I had to do a little fiddling as well. However, we got through it. So great job, guys. We got through level 4 exercises today. Next week, we'll dive right into jQuery effects and animation. So we'll start seeing stuff move around on the page, change colors, increase in size, decrease in size, and a lot more fun next week. So it'll be our last session as well. We'll finish up effects and animation and then Ajax. So it'll be a heavy lesson next week. It'll be pretty lengthy because Ajax itself could be a whole lesson. So we'll try to get through both of those next week. As always, if you're watching and you haven't signed up for the prep work, you can visit prep.origincodecademy.com/prep course sign up, and this will it's a simple form. Looks like 5 fields. Sign up and you're in, and you can start working through these courses as you saw us doing today. It starts with Web 100, moves into Node 100, and then finally Web 101, which is what we're on now. And overall, there's 55 modules. So I think the first one is the longest. But you can always jump in, try to catch up to us for next week as we wrap up. And then, yeah, thanks everyone who joined today. And we hope to see you next time. So, yeah, have a great week and see you next Wednesday.